Hey guys, welcome back. So today's video is going to be a DIY mommy and me tumblers. These turned out so adorable. I am super proud of them, and I am going to break down exactly what I used and the price that I paid so you guys can see how much the whole project is going to cost. Also, just to throw this out there, I am not a professional in any way, and these are far from perfect. I'm going to leave links in the description box below to people with great tutorials here on YouTube on making these tumblers. If you are interested in how to make these mommy and me tumblers, then keep watching. So starting off with materials, I have a tumbler. This is a 20 ounce from Ozark Trail, and a Munchkin 360 insulated cup. Then I have a mix of 3 glitters. I wanted to do an ombre effect, so all of these I got at Michael's. I have a purple, a pink, and some chunkies, and they all have the same iridescence to them, which makes them go really well together. Next is some white chalk paint. If you use chalk paint as a base on your tumblers, then you end up wasting less glitter as you do the coats. Then I have some Alumilite Amazing Clear Cast, just epoxy, you can use whichever one you want, some little sponges to apply the paint, and some rubbing alcohol. You want to wipe down your cups before you start your project to make sure that there's no lint or any particles on them. Some craft sticks to mix the epoxy, and then some sanding paper. You need to scuff up your cups before you begin so that the paint adheres to the cup. You're also going to need this to sand in between epoxy coats. So I'm starting off with a sanded cup, and I'm going to wipe it down with some rubbing alcohol and a coffee filter. You don't want to use paper towels because it's going to be a hot mess with the lint. Then you're just going to coat your cups. I like to do 2 coats because that first one is always streaky, so the second one kind of evens it all out. Here I'm wet sanding the Munchkin cup. If you don't want to inhale anything funky, you can just run it underwater and sand it that way, and it works. And if you have any questions on how I MacGyvered everything to make it work, leave me a comment down below and I'll let you know. I'm gonna do the epoxy now. I'm using the Alumilite one. It's the FDA approved one. I think you're supposed to mix equal parts, so that's what I'm gonna do. Quick tip when you're mixing epoxy, make sure you're as accurate as you can when mixing both parts, and then very slowly incorporate them together. The less bubbles you have in your mix, the better. I don't have a heat gun to remove bubbles, so I very slowly mix them with that popsicle stick. Then you want to do 1 light coat of epoxy. This is going to be an adhesive for the glitter, so you don't have to go too heavy. I didn't really have a method for the glitter. I just started with the top area, the rim, just because I did not want my epoxy drying on one of the most important parts of the cup. You do want to try and work as fast as you can, of course. Epoxy does give you a decent amount of time to work with, so it's not a problem, but be very generous with your amount of glitter because the epoxy soaks it all up. For the middle part of the cup, I went a little lighter just because I was trying to diffuse the color and have that ombre effect. Do not do this outside. I made that mistake. There was glitter everywhere. Just do a well-ventilated area and you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about the chunky glitter just yet. You want to make sure you have your base colors first. For the second coat of epoxy, you're going to want to use the gloved hand. It's just easier. You can feel everything on the cup, and then you'll be able to tell when an area does not have epoxy. You want to coat all of the glitter, make sure that everything has full coverage because that glitter really soaks up the epoxy. Very important, guys. If you have some time, check out Minderella Creations here on YouTube. I know I'm going really quickly on the process on this video, but for particular questions on how to mix epoxy or just troubleshooting if you're wanting to do this project, she goes into detail on how to do each of these things for you to make this project. So I'm starting off with the chunky glitter at the bottom of the cup because I want that glitter to really stick. Before I add the second layer of pink, make sure you have a designated sheet of paper for each of the glitters you're working with. Pour those back into the container before moving on to the next color, or you're just gonna have a mix of colors. After you're done with your second coat of glitter, you're gonna press down lightly on your cup to make sure that the chunky glitter is laying flat. That way you won't have as many bumps on your cup and your sanding is going to be a lot easier. I do want to explain my setup a little bit because a lot of this is just MacGyvering things with what you can, right? There's no like spoken rule on how you should do this. So I went to Home Depot and I got a PVC pipe, had it cut, and then some connectors. I used one of my filming light stands and I popped the PVC pipe in the middle, and that way I had a stand to work with. I can leave the cups overnight to dry, and it worked pretty well for what I needed it to. Also, my cup is on a Dollar Tree football that I cut a hole in and stuck the PVC pipe. We're about to do the final coat of epoxy before we do the decal and then the last coat. So I don't have a fancy cup turner because this is not really what I do. It's just a craft that I'm trying out. So I did a manual cup turner with a diaper box. I just measured the size to make sure that the holes were level. On the inside, I have a PVC pipe. You don't necessarily need the connectors here, but I like to have the option to detach each side. Turn it as the epoxy is drying so that you won't get any drips or fish eyes. First thing you're gonna do is take a brush and brush off any excess glitter that you have on your cups. Then you're gonna mix your epoxy. I did 15 milliliters of each, so that's 30 total. It's better to have more epoxy than you need than run short. And then same method as I did on that second coat. You're gonna run your gloved hand to make sure you have even coverage all around the cup. Now, if you get epoxy inside of your cup, because this is important if you're doing a full coverage cup, you can take a makeup sponge from the drugstore and some acetone, and it'll come right off, so don't worry about it too much if it's a little messy. After you've applied it, then you can just take that sponge and run it on the inside of the cup if you have any drippage. After you've applied the epoxy on your cup, you're going to want to set up a chair next to your little setup and hand turn it as the drips form. It's important that you hover over your cup at the beginning because you don't want it to dry with those drips coming down. So just keep turning it, and then you can check on it every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes until it starts hardening up. Seems like I lost some footage here. So after your cup has dried, you're going to sand it in the same way you did at the beginning to make sure that you remove any bumpiness caused by the glitter. Make sure that your lip around the cup is well rounded. Then you're going to rub it down with alcohol and place your decal. It's just like a sticker. You can use a credit card to make sure that there are no air bubbles. Now we move on to the last layer of epoxy. I did mix more this time around because it's my last one and I need that decal covered. I did 20 milliliters of each. It was more than I needed, but again, you want to mix more than you think you need. You're going to apply it in the same way you did your previous layers, but make sure you run your finger on the rim of the cup. You want a good seal on your rim so that when you wash your cup, water won't get in there. Don't worry if you get some epoxy inside your cup. Once it starts drying, you can take a little makeup sponge with that acetone and clean it up. Another thing that you can do if that stresses you out, before you start doing your layer, take some Vaseline with a little Q-tip and run it on the inside of the cup. It's easier to clean if there's a layer of Vaseline preventing it from sticking to the inside, so that's a quick tip. I wanted to make note of this because I do not have an embossing gun. I do see a few bubbles on my cup, and you can take a lighter and go over the bubbles until they pop very lightly. I don't do this all over the cup. It's just if I see a bubble, I'll just take my lighter and go over it. So I'm going to break down all of the materials so you guys can see an estimate of what everything ended up costing me. The tumbler is from the Ozark Trail brand. It's a 20 ounce and the price was $6.74. The Munchkin 360 cup, that one was $14.85 because it's the insulated one. They're a little more pricey. The chalk paint was $5.97. The popsicle sticks were $2.47. Honestly, you can get a smaller pack. You can get a pack from the dollar store. The epoxy cost me $11.03 because I got it at Michael's, and you can use coupons to get it cheaper. That is a plus. The glitter, each of them were $3.19. The wet dry sandpaper, I believe, was $2.40. The foam brushes that I got, I ended up using 2 of them. Each of them were 80 cents. The decals I got from an Etsy shop, and again, I'll leave everything linked down below. And for both of them, it was $6.50 total. I think I'm missing from this list the disposable cups and the gloves, which you can both get at Dollar Tree. If there's anything that I forgot right now in the moment, I will leave a list of all the materials right here so you guys can reference them, and also links to everything I find online on the info box down below. So that is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting, and I hope it motivates you to do a project like this. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!